Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you needed to do something to connect with yourself or the world? It might mean something like deciding to commit to running a marathon. Maybe you decide to write a book, or you visit a place that you've always wanted to visit. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe you commit to a religious ceremony or set out on a spiritual journey. All of these options can change our lives in notable ways, but not every quest for self-exploration ends well. Sometimes, your story just ends with questions. My name is Brienne, and I'm the host and creator of Among the Dirt and Trees, a show where we explore true crime cases that occur out in nature. In today's episode, we're going to discuss the disappearance of Maureen Kelly, a young woman who went by the name Anu, walked into the forest, and never walked back out. I usually do 2-part episodes on Wednesdays, but this episode, while longer, won't be that long, so I decided to just do an extended episode this week instead. I hope you guys won't mind. On June 9th, 2013, Anu was at the Canyon Creek campground with friends. She and her friend group were enjoying the opportunity to connect with nature, and it sounds like their time was well spent and a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day out with temperatures reaching the high 70s, and let me just say that with this below zero Colorado weather, I'm feeling very jealous of that. Overall, it sounds like the perfect day, right? Warm weather, good friends, and plenty of fresh air. But for Anu, this day meant something different. She felt that there was something that she needed to do, and that something was a spiritual quest. She was well known for her love of music and creativity. She was growing a YouTube channel where she posted ukulele videos, but lately, her interests were more focused on nature and self-exploration. She told her friends that she wanted to do a spiritual quest out in the forest. So, when the group decided to go for a camping trip together, she saw her opportunity. I'm not clear what she was looking to find or learn about herself. Maybe she just wanted to feel more connected with nature. Maybe she wanted to leave the chaos of the world behind and really connect with the space around her and within her. And she had a plan to make this happen. That evening, around 5, she decided that the timing was right. So she did what she felt was right to prepare for her spiritual quest in the woods. She grabbed a fanny pack and filled it with 3 essentials: a knife, a compass, and some matches. I think that we can all agree that these are some of the necessary essentials. But you might not agree with what she did next. Anu stripped completely naked, grabbed her fanny pack, and ventured out into the woods. It was a warm day, and her friends weren't worried about her. They just kind of thought it was cool and interesting. It sounds like they didn't really know what she was planning to do, and expected her back shortly. She said that she would return by midnight at the latest, but as we now know, she never actually came back. Midnight rolled around, and her friends started freaking out. Even though the day was warm, the forest isn't always forgiving. In the woods that night, the temperature dropped into the low 40s, a fact which might not be a problem for well-prepared backpackers, but it is certainly an issue for someone who is wandering through the forest naked. She had no protection, no clothing, and not even any boots or shoes. A fact which would be a huge focus in this case. She was completely unprepared. No water, nothing. And by midnight, her friend knew that she was either lost or that something had happened to her. Though the articles I read did seem to highlight the fact that no one stopped her from walking out into the woods in the first place, I do think it's important to note that when she didn't return, her friends went to the police immediately. And the search began. I'm sure that the police were absolutely baffled when they received this report, but maybe not given the area. I don't know how many people do things like this out in nature, I'm gonna be honest. I know that it probably skyrocketed thanks to Into the Wild. I just remember that book and movie being really, really popular growing up, and I know that it's a tragic story, but the book nerd in me was always so confused by it, because the guy wanted to be like Henry David Thoreau, but Thoreau was not even really out in nature. He had a cabin and guests like all the time and frequently walked back into town to meet his friends. Walden was great though, and I do think that sometimes life calls us to do certain things, but unfortunately, these things aren't always safe. If there's anything that you should know about me, it is that I absolutely love sharks, and I have since I was a little kid. I think that they are the coolest, and it has always been my lifelong dream to go swimming with them or get in a shark cage or something. Unfortunately, it is something that I recently realized I will never be able to do. Though I do love sharks, being allergic to fish makes it pretty impossible to meet my animal heroes. Unless I want to go into anaphylaxis induced by chum during a swim, I've got to sit this one out, so now I have to find something new for my bucket list. But anyway, sometimes these calls lead us into dangerous situations. And I'm sure that the police expected to find Anu cold and tucked away somewhere out in the forest, right? They expected to find her lost and wandering. The temperatures were low, but finding her was still an option. After all, how far could she really get with no shoes and no gear? The answer is surprisingly far, apparently. Search efforts led police to follow what they believed to be her footprints, which she left a fairly clear trail of. This was a very good thing. But they couldn't actually confirm that they were hers, just that they were the right size, and obviously the person was barefoot, so it's a fairly safe guess. And it gets more strange than this. The footprints, to begin with, followed an impossibly difficult path. Grueling terrain that was rough even in boots, and yet it seems like she made it through. What makes this disturbing is the fact that her footprints go through all of this treacherous terrain, and then they ended at a service road, and there wasn't a trace of her past that. Police say that it was nothing short of a miracle that she made it down the steep and dangerous terrain at all, but the fact that even dogs couldn't catch her scent past that road is obviously really alarming. It's like she made it through the hard part and then disappeared. Unfortunately, this really is where the investigation ended. After only a couple of days, police called it quits, presuming her to be dead and lost to the elements. They did resume their search later after some pushback, but nothing ever came out that would help them to find out what happened to her. Anu was out on a quest to learn more about herself and the world around her. She is not the first person to have done this, and the truth is that it doesn't generally end in a full disappearance, right? So what really happened here? What separated her? Police asked in advance and knew that she wasn't under the influence of alcohol or drugs, which seems like a fair question to ask given her age and the circumstance, right? It doesn't seem that she was in the middle of a mental health crisis, as far as anyone could tell. Her friends weren't even worried until she didn't come back. So, what could have led to this disappearance? Well, there are some obvious options and then some less obvious options. The most obvious is the elements, and this is what police think most likely happened. They suspect that while she was out in nature, her lack of gear and clothing put her at extreme risk. Hypothermia was possible that night, and they believe that it is likely she might have passed away from the cold, but that still leaves the question of her body. Currently, police have two prominent theories regarding the fact that they found no traces of her. The first is clear and gruesome, that along with succumbing to the cold, she also found herself at the mercy of natural predators in the area. They believe that it's possible that animals decided to descend upon her, likely after her passing, and that there is no evidence for this reason. Basically, they kind of think that she was dragged off or buried or something. The other option is slightly, but only slightly more optimistic. The area where she was walking had really thick brush. Brush that was so thick that police actually said you could walk right over a body and not realize it. It's completely possible that she found herself rolled under some brush and that the search party really did just miss her. Or even that she was trying to hide from the cold under it, you know? But nature might not be the only cause here. Some of the people close to her actually suspect that she might not want to be found, which is certainly interesting, right? I don't know if they mean that she tucked herself away somewhere when she realized her predicament, or if they think that she's really out there living her best life out in the woods. Maybe she really did find herself out there and left her life behind, hoping to live a more peaceful and natural life. We often assume that every disappearance involves something treacherous, but sometimes people really do just make the choice to leave the world behind. We might not understand it, but some people do it, right? For all we know, she completed her spiritual quest and found that she belonged somewhere else. Of course, there is the less pleasant option. And her footprints ending at the road really haunt me for this reason. Is it possible that Anu defied all odds and survived the difficult terrain just to find help waiting on the road? And is it possible that the help she found was actually more dangerous than the dark, cold forest that she left behind? We like to think that in our moment of need, someone will help us, right? But most research shows that actually isn't likely, and not just serial killers, but just in general, people tend to not help. Is it possible that someone saw a vulnerable and naked young woman looking for help and turned it into an opportunity to snatch up a victim? Honestly, I don't know, but I certainly would not put it past people. Unless someone finds her, we probably never will know how this story ended. For now, all we have are the pictures and videos of a vibrant and smiling girl who looked like she had her entire life ahead of her. She left behind family and friends who still mourn her to this day. Even if she did venture off and find herself, staying out there by choice, the people who love her have repeatedly stated that they want her back and they want to know that she's safe. I don't know what she was looking for, but I really hope that, against all odds, she found it somehow. If nothing else, a smiling girl playing ukulele for the animals in the forest would certainly make one hell of a Disney movie, so here's to hoping. If you want to discuss the top items on your bucket list, moments that helped you to learn who you are, or the cruelty of loving an animal that you can never touch. Feel free to contact me on Twitter or Instagram using the tag @datpod. Thanks, guys.